We talked a lot about Crown Jewel on the show, obviously. But the one thing I don't think we talked about enough, and I'm looking forward to talking about it with you, is AJ Styles and John Cena and what they were able to deliver in that match on Saturday and the love letter to pro wrestling the last 20 years. Because, and I've said it on the show, we've seen love letters to the golden era of the 80s, we've seen love letters to the Attitude Era. But what Cena and AJ did was a love letter to the last 20 years of
Oh,
professional wrestling, and I thought it was absolutely incredible.
it was everything that I knew it would be and wanted it to be and more. And the crowd, the audience in the audience that were, live in attendance, and then the people watching, everybody understood the match. They got it right away. They got the tributes. I love that they went back and like, cuz AJ Styles has been talking a lot about, hey, this could be my last year, and I'm thinking about, he understands that, like, he also wants to beat the house. He wants to make sure that he doesn't wear out his welcome. He's not the last girl at the party, that sort of thing. But I mean, listen, AJ could never be the last girl at the party. People would love and celebrate him as long as he wanted to do this. But he's been teasing it a little too. So it was like their tribute together. They paid tribute in that match to Miz. They paid tribute to Sting. They paid tribute to Rusev, to Samoa Joe, to Chris Jericho, to Bray Wyatt, to Christopher Daniels, to Randy, multiple times to Randy, to Taker multiple times, Shawn Michaels. There was just so many people, and I probably missed people in there, but there were so many people that they paid tribute to, and so the crowd was in on it with them. And it was just so cool to see the audience get, especially when Cena was about to do Bray's finish. It was
Sister
like
Abigail, yep.
Sister Abigail. The crowd, the people don't lie. The crowd doesn't lie. Like that once you saw that, it was like everybody was just in on it, and you could feel the energy. It was just so cool because we saw, we've been seeing Cena kind of pay tribute to several people. But in this match, it was just a montage, and also AJ was paying tribute to people too. And you could, when AJ was doing, paying tribute to certain people, I could go back in my mind and go, that's, they're clearly thinking about Samoa Joe. They're clearly thinking about Christopher Daniels. Like, I was just thinking of AJ's greatest rivals, because AJ's greatest rivals, a lot of them were in TNA.
Yeah, and that's how I looked at it. And I'm glad you brought that up because, like, for me, AJ gave tribute to really the biggest stars from TNA these last 15 to 16 years: Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, Sting, Frankie Kazarian, and
Yes,
James
yes,
Storm.
yes,
And
yes,
then and then Cena with Bray Wyatt, Chris Jericho, The Undertaker, The Miz,
yes.
um, Rusev, Triple H,
Rusev.
Randy
Yep.
Orton, Rey
Yes.
Mysterio.
Yes.
Like, it
Yes.
was
Well,
just insane.
so I sent John Cena a little text. I sent him a text. I said, TJ and I are watching your match with AJ. What a great match, a masterpiece. I said, TJ's watched it back now 3 times. He loved it. TJ said he was so curious if you were going to pull off the 619 because the crowd was so into it. Such a fun match, amazing chemistry with AJ. Well done. I just wanted to tell, because after a match, after somebody has a match, after I have a match, one of the first things I do is I look at my phone to see if anybody watched it. And sometimes it just means the world from your peers when you get a nice message like that. It just means so much. So John wrote back about the 619. He said, "Thank you both. I had to try, but 619, not my digits." And I laugh because it's just, John is such a, like, he's such a great guy. He always, like, he never forgets his roots. He responded, like, he was so nice to even, like, listen, it was the night of his match. It was like an hour after they had it, and he's like sending me this nice text back, and I just thought that was so nice because, again, he didn't have to. And he appreciated that I watched the match, and I appreciated that he gave us one of the performances of his lifetime.
I
It
really
was
feel that way too. I feel that way,
magical.
Natty, because I think the match with AJ, and we'll dive in a little bit deeper because, like you said, I think that was just a fun love letter
Fun.
of a match. But the match that he gave us at SummerSlam with Cody, I really
Oh,
feel like these were two of the best matches that I can remember from John Cena. And everybody's been talking about this final run and who could possibly be John Cena's last opponent on Saturday night's main event. And it's fun to speculate, and we've been doing it a lot here
yes.
on Busted Open. But what John Cena's been doing, and Natty, you know this better than anybody because your life, your family's life has been pro wrestling. It's very, very rare that we get to see a farewell tour for a wrestler. This just does not happen. Like, you don't get to see something like what we're seeing with John Cena. It just doesn't happen.
And now that I'm
And
watching, I don't want him to go. I don't want him to go. I'm like, no, you can't. You're doing such great work. You're not allowed to leave.
It is, and Bully has said this, and it is a bit of a shame, Natty, that his last match isn't going to be at WrestleMania. Like, like Saturday night's main event in December, right around the holidays. It's great. But I always feel like everybody's ultimate moment should be kind of like Flair and Shawn Michaels, like it was at WrestleMania 24 to have it. It's a shame like the Undertaker didn't have that moment, that last moment in front of a WrestleMania crowd.
But so that's the thing, and I do get where you guys are coming from, but I've been saying this to everyone. It's in the old days, back in my day, but in the old days with WWE, WrestleMania was always our big, big, big show. It was like everybody wanted to get on it. And granted, don't get me wrong, we all still do want to get on it, but it's got that almost like nostalgic vibe of like, we got to get on WrestleMania. It's the biggest show of the year. Now with WWE, we're doing massive shows all the time. And it's a testament, I mean, to the company just doing so well. People are very interested. We're doing stadium shows and massive shows all the time, and selling out stadiums and selling out arenas. And I mean, I saw something online, and maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I don't think I'm wrong, but there's like 50,000 people in line to buy a ticket to John Cena's last match. Like in queue, like there was something like saying that they were overloaded with people trying to watch, like get like a ticket to buy. It's like Taylor Swift stuff, where it's like like my neighbor was trying to get tickets to one of Taylor Swift's last show, like her last show for the Eras tour, and she was like, I couldn't even get tickets. Like, it was just insane.
But Natty, that's what I mean. Like, it's going to be in an arena. Imagine if Cena's last match was in a stadium. You would have no problem selling that stadium out because it's John Cena's last match.
But John Cena doesn't always go by the book. That's the beauty of John, is that, like, he plays, I feel like he marches to the beat of his own drum, and he's a very unique person in the sense that, like, in a lot of ways, he's always been a big company guy, where he's really, the company has, especially during very tumultuous times in wrestling, Cena has been a guy. TJ said, there was a certain time in WWE that Cena really helped the industry more than anybody could possibly imagine, where there was a time that they needed him, and he carried the company on his back. He saved wrestling. TJ said that. I'm quoting TJ, and it was just during a very tumultuous time in wrestling. Something crazy happened, and this, that, and everything else. But he's a guy that is a company guy, but he's also going to march to the beat of his own drum, and I love that. He doesn't always play by the rules, but he knows I think he really does know what's best for business. So I think for him, he's done WrestleManias and stadiums. He's done it all. He has done it all. We could totally sell out a stadium, but at the same time, like, there might be a sentimental reason for him wanting to do it this way. And I feel like he's doing it on his terms, and the company's being fully supportive of that.
Natty, you just said something, and I don't think it's talked about enough, and I'm glad you brought it up. Like, John Cena became the face of the company at a very difficult transition period for the WWE.
Yes.
Everybody loved the Attitude Era, and they took that to as far as it could go. And then they went in a completely different direction with the PG era. And it was tough for a lot of fans to swallow.
And John Cena was the quarterback of that era.
Yes. And he took it. And I don't know if there was anybody else that could have taken that ball and scored the way that John Cena did and made it work and made it successful. That could have been a very steep and deep decline for the company. And I agree with what TJ said. Like, if it wasn't for John Cena with the direction that the WWE was going, that was a very tough predicament for John Cena to be in.
And then that's the thing, is that sometimes there's circumstances or situations that happen in life or in organizations. I mean, look at the pandemic. COVID shut down so many places. And, like sometimes there's extenuating, life altering moments that happen that are beyond our control. And when you have to pivot and pivot in a huge way with a global crisis or a crisis like, there again, I won't get into it because I don't want to get controversial on a fun radio show with us, but like it was a very traumatic time in the industry, and there was a lot of craziness that happened um, with one of WWE's own stars, and the company needed to pivot, and they pivoted with the quarterback of John Cena. And TJ said he's like in that time, it was so tumultuous that like John really saved wrestling during that time, and people became so like he he really helped the company in such a big way, but he's never ever compromised who he is. And I love that. Like I love that now in WWE, you hear The Rock, you hear Triple H saying like this is what John wants. This is what John wants to do. And so I think that John will always go along with what he will always be a company player, but at the end of the day, he also will say, "Hey, this is what I'm feeling and this is what I want to do."
He's earned it.
Well, in that match with AJ at Crown Jewel, he didn't just pay tribute to people in WWE. And I love that. He paid tribute to people that were a big part of his life and people that, may have worked in WWE but that are not in WWE anymore. He had no qualms about saying, "Hey, like I like this person. I care about this person." Like and that's the thing is that he's just so universally loved. And I love that because when you're somebody like John Cena, you have friends in every corner of the industry. And same with AJ. I mean, AJ doing the Coquina Clutch, that was a tribute to Samoa Joe. You know what I mean? Like they weren't, it was just so cool for them to pay tribute universally across the board to everybody in the industry. I loved that.
And I love that the commentators had no problem saying the names either. Like,
Yes.
you know, Walls of Jericho, Chris Jericho right now is
Yes.
with AEW.
Right.
But and Edge,
Edge.
you're able to say those names. Would you have been able to do that 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Probably not. But I'm glad that the WWE realizes that wrestling fans are smart and wrestling fans know everything that's going on. And I'm glad that they were able to let that happen and let that breathe.
Yes.
And it worked so well
And
on
that's the thing
Saturday.
is that like guys like Edge and Jericho and Samoa Joe and Christopher Daniels and just the list goes on and on, like Sting, like they were people that were important to AJ and to John. So it's nice to see them celebrated. But I will say, do you know who I would personally like to see that nobody's really like, nah, he's not like where people are talking about Gunther, they're talking about Randy Orton, they're talking about CM Punk, they're talking about The Rock, they're talking about Roman Reigns, they're talking about Cody Rhodes. I mean, people are even talking about Dominic Mysterio being his last
Yep.
opponent. I'm going with a wild card. I would like to see Miz. They had such great matches. Their chemistry was so good. And in a lot of ways, Miz is one of those hidden, I don't even know if he's a hidden treasure, but he's just he's the guy that if you want to get something off the ground, in my opinion, you turn to Miz. He's so reliable. And he actually in the company as far as males go, I don't think there's a male in our company that has had a longer career uninterrupted than Miz. But more than anything, it's the chemistry that Miz and Cena have had, and so he's not. I think Miz isn't talked about enough. But I would love to see Miz be one of John's final matches. If he's not his final match, I'd love to see him be in the running for one of his final matches.
All right. So a couple of things here, Natty. You got 4 appearances left with John Cena. Out of those last 4 appearances, how many matches do you think we're going to get from John Cena in these last 4 appearances?
Now I'm getting sad because now I'm like, it's coming down to the wire and it's kind of sinking in. I'm like, we're not gonna get John Cena again. Like this is like crazy. Like there's no way that he can be leaving us. So I am being greedy and I'm being very selfish, but I want to see 4 more matches with John Cena.
Okay. All right. I mean, and that's possible. I don't know because we got 2 Raws, Survivor Series, and then that Saturday night's main event. I'm gonna ask another question, and I know, and this is gonna be a tough one because I know how old school you are. Should John Cena win in his last match?
So you're asking me these really hard questions today. So Knowing John Cena and the kind of person that he is, I think John would probably refuse to win. I think that he's ultimately about passing the torch. He's always about giving back to the business. He's one of those people that he wants to leave the business better than how he entered it. So I don't think I personally don't see John wanting to win because he's very, very unselfish. But I do think there is something to leaving on top, beating the house and leaving with your head held high and just leaving on such a high note. So I'm torn both ways, but just if I think if it was up to John, he would lose. He would lose and he would pay it forward.
And I'm sure you know him a lot, obviously a lot better than I do. I don't know him at all. So you know him a hell of a lot more than I do. Like, but I don't know if the fans want to see him. Let's face it, Natty, he's done a lot of giving. For somebody who had a reputation, quote unquote, for not putting people over, he's put a lot of people over, Cody being the biggest one at SummerSlam. I think for myself, I think I'd like to see him win. I think I'd like to see his hand raised, and I'd love to see him win in his last match before saying
I
goodbye.
do agree with you. I'd love to see him leave on top. I think that he deserves that, but I just know him and like I just know that I just feel like will want to pay it forward to somebody that's going to carry the business forward. And I mean, when I think if I was going to pick the last four matches, not in this order, I would go with Gunther because I think Gunther is an incredible heel. And he's just I love Gunther's work. I think Gunther is phenomenal. I would go with Gunther. I would go with Miz. I would go with The Rock. And I know again this is a wild card. I would go with Dominic Mysterio.
Okay, no, I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, so I'd
I
go with those. Not that I don't want to see Punk or Cody involved in that or even Roman, but
Hey, but
Dom
we've already seen
yeah,
Punk, we've already seen Cody. Roman's an interesting one too, but I like the list that you have here: Gunther,
Dom
Miz,
is a yeah,
Rock, and Dom.
Miz. Yeah, Gunther. I'm feeling like Gunther would be. Gunther's just he's a staple in wrestling. Like to me, when I look at Gunther, I'm like, even when I'm at the dungeon and we're working with people on stuff, and we've been working with a lot of people. We had like 26 people last night. Um, I talked about Gunther. I was like, he just keeps it simple and solid, and he's just so good at what he does. And I just love his work. I like really, he's just rock solid. So I would love to see Gunther. Gunther, I think, could be a really cool last match, or Miz. I think Miz is just such a staple. He takes anything you give Miz, he's gonna make it great. That's just who he is, and he's really, really reliable and rock solid. I don't think Miz. I mean, again, injuries fucking suck, but I think Miz has had like one injury in like 19 years. How wild is that?
It's crazy. It's crazy
Yeah, because
because
I
he's
don't
been
know where
involved
the
in.
hell that.
Where does that come from?
Yeah, I mean, he must have really great genetics.
Now, and I feel like as wrestling fans, and I know this has been a hot topic, and honestly, it deserves to be because of what John Cena has given us in his career. But it's very rare that not just a WWE superstar, but a pro wrestler gets the opportunity to have a moment like John Cena is going to have on Saturday night's main event. And I don't expect you to comment on this, uh, Natty, but that's why I was so angry and so pissed off at Goldberg because it's very rare that you get a moment to have that moment in the sun where it's like my last match, my last moment on Saturday night's main event on network TV. It's very rare. A handful of pro wrestlers in the history of wrestling has had that. Goldberg had it, and he bitched and complained on the way out.
I'm just big on gratitude.
Yes.
I'm big on gratitude because this is the thing. And I'm not even necessarily pointing this at Goldberg, but I'm just saying in general, if you went up and down every roster and every wrestling promotion across the globe every single person would have a reason to go, I should do this and I should be doing that and I should have more. Like, because in general, we're all really hungry. We're all very hungry driven people. That's why, like, to get to the top, you got to be hungry and you got to be driven. You got to have an ego. You got to be a little, like, you got to have so many different things in order to get to the top. It's a very, very tough industry, but you will never, ever, ever go wrong with showing gratitude. And so in moments where I'm feeling frustrated or I feel like, oh, this should have happened or I should have had that, I also stop and think, there are so many things that I have because of professional wrestling. Everything I have in my life is because of wrestling. And, wrestling has been my greatest teacher. The people that I've worked with have been my opponents, my bosses. They've been my greatest teachers. Like, pro wrestling owes none of us anything. And I think that's really the attitude to have, is that pro wrestling owes none of us anything. So yes, I do understand why you would be a little pissed about all that stuff with Goldberg. I get it. I understand.